Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight on Chamber Connect. I'm Sarah Ray, President and CEO of the Chamber, and we are excited tonight to have our super rock star team from Kaiser Permanente here. We have got a star lineup for everyone tonight, and we're going to talk tonight a lot about flu and how COVID, correlates with that. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And I think what I want to do first is we're just going to go around and let everybody introduce themselves. So, Dr. Lobello, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. And so great for us to join you today. Felipe Lobello. I'm the Physician Director for Epidemiology, Public Health, and Preparedness at Kaiser Permanente, Georgia. And I'm happy to talk today about COVID, flu, answer any questions you may have. Thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you. All right, Dr. Griffith, how are you? If you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hey, Dr. Chris Griffith, and I'm just your good old-fashioned country doctor, like the old school days. But, I'm actually a specialist. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, and also an obesity medicine specialist. So I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having us.
Great, thank you. I'm not going to talk about that football jersey that's behind you at all. We're just going to let that go, okay?
Who they?
All right, and last but not least, we have Dr. Pimentel. Hey, how are you?
Good, Sarah. Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having us here. We are so excited to be able to join you tonight. So I'm a family physician. My name is Belkis Pimentel. I'm the Physician Program Director for Quality Performance and Population Health at Kaiser.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys. Again, thank you all for joining us. Kaiser is a huge advocate, supporter, and has a great presence in our community. And I know that you guys have a lot of information to share on something that should be at the top of everybody's minds as we head into, well, we're already in fall, I guess, but as we head into, into flu season. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. I want to start with Dr. Lobello. Do you just want to talk to us a little bit about the current state of COVID in Douglas County, please?
Sure. Well, obviously, you all know we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we are probably starting a third surge of infection in Metro Atlanta and in Douglas and in general in the country. At Kaiser Permanente, we sort of track our internal number of infections, how many tests are coming positive, but also how many people are coming to our emergency rooms with influenza-like illness, respiratory illnesses, as well as COVID-like illness. And getting all that data together really gives us a window into the future. And we are officially on the upswing, what we called a COVID-19 resurgence. You will probably won't hear about it in the news just yet because it will take some time for those numbers to really, go up and to, start hitting us in terms of increased hospitalizations and increased mortality. But you sort of know the natural history of this. First you have a bunch of infections, then 2 or 3 weeks later you have increased hospitalizations and increased deaths, unfortunately. You can see here in this figure that this website, and we like to refer to it because it's pretty easy to use. It's covidactnow.org. And it shows that for Douglas County, the COVID risk level is high because of all these sort of different metrics. There's an increasing number of new cases. It's still not critical, but pretty high at 12.6 per 100,000 inhabitants. And then you have an infection rate that is going up as well. We like that number to be as close to 0 as possible, never above 1. And unfortunately, it's been going up and it will probably be over 1, which means that the epidemic is expanding, not shrinking. And also the problem we know with COVID is that it stresses the healthcare system. A lot of sick people at the same time. And the headroom use in Douglas County is already maxed out. Fortunately, hospitals have been able to learn how to treat COVID. how to expand or have additional beds. But we really need to, help public health in terms of diminishing so that we can control the not overstress the health system even more.
Got it. No, and that absolutely makes sense. And I think it's very important for people to know, I feel like a lot of the, buzz has subsided in some capacity about there being a risk, and it's still there. It's still, the hospitals are still at capacity. So I think it's very important to keep that at the front of people's minds. There's a lot of things going on right now, but COVID is definitely still relevant. So thank you. All right, Dr. Pimentel, I want you, if you don't mind, will you talk to us a little bit about the difference between COVID and the flu?
Yes, absolutely. So, we look at these viruses, they've been around forever, since the beginning of time. They're going to be around after we're gone. And there have been many, many examples of novel viruses. And as you all know, we have the novel coronavirus here on our right, and its little twin on the left, influenza. And this is what we like to call dearly twindemic season coming up, because every year we see seasonal flu, and there's no reason to think otherwise. And usually around December, January, February, we are seeing lots of flu cases. Mm-hmm. It's really important now to talk about both of them may actually coexist, and it's going to make things even more complicated, especially overwhelming the hospital system. They're both respiratory viruses. They both infect the respiratory tract. They worsen underlying disease. They both can be transmitted in the same fashion. When you cough or you sneeze or you speak, and you could be asymptomatic or symptomatic. They both have similar high risk profiles where people in the same conditions are high risk. As you've seen, COVID-19 hasn't had as many children. However, flu does kill healthy children. Mm-hmm. And one death in a child is one death too many, especially when something is preventable. Symptoms are similar. There's cough, congestion, fever, body aches, headaches, fatigue. There's shortness of breath in both, but usually much more in COVID-19. And COVID-19 has a unique symptom of loss of taste or smell. Of course, it's not in everybody, but that kind of differentiates it from flu. So it's going to be a little bit challenging for clinicians to tell, is it flu, is it COVID? Mm-hmm. So if we at least get a vaccine that we have for flu now, then we can eliminate one of them. So, but let me talk about the history of the vaccine and the burden of flu. As I mentioned, there have been many flu pandemics in history. And just going back to last century, 1918, 1919, there was one that was one of the largest medical deaths that happened worldwide, called the Spanish flu. There was an estimated 50 to 100 million people worldwide that died, and almost 1 million here in the US alone. So flu can be very serious. Just looking at back in last year, that actually was a little bit truncated season because of COVID. We had 38 million flu illnesses, 400,000 flu hospitalizations, and 22,000 flu deaths. That's a lot of deaths. We never think about that, right? We never think it's so serious. Mm-hmm. But flu kills thousands of people every single year.
So another quick question, should we be concerned about one over the other, or just equally as concerned?
Well, I think right now we need to be concerned about both as we go into the flu season. The thing to do is to prevent both of them, but we have a vaccine for flu now. So you want to get your flu vaccine now in order to keep that from happening. But the same things that you do to prevent COVID, that are you wear a mask, cover your coughs, you social distance or physically be separated, washing your hands a lot, and cleaning, disinfecting. Same thing we've been saying to avoid getting flu. There's nothing different But right now, COVID-19 doesn't have a flu vaccine. It doesn't have a vaccine, so
Yeah,
we need to try to avoid getting either one, really.
absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. All right. I want to go ahead and ask Dr. Labello another question. Dr. Labello, or no, I'm sorry. Dr. Pimentel, I have one more for you. Sorry, I'm not paying
Oh,
attention.
okay, no worries.
Who do you recommend that should receive the flu vaccine?
Well, we recommend everybody 6 months and over to get the flu vaccine. So, but there are certain higher risk groups. Those who are 65 and older are really high risk because 70 to 90% of flu deaths are actually in that age population.
Wow.
And 50 to 70% of hospitalizations are in that age group. So really important for them. And then between 6 months and 5 years of age, you definitely want to make sure your children have the vaccine because the greatest amounts of deaths happen in that age group.
Mm-hmm.
And the vaccine has shown that it actually has reduced the risk of death in children.
Yeah.
51% for those who have a underlying disease and 65% for those who are healthy.
Wow.
So it's proven. Pregnant patients, they definitely need to have it. And in every pregnancy, it doesn't matter what trimester they're in or where in their pregnancy, they should get it soon if they haven't had it already because it takes 2 weeks for it to work. And it has been shown that for women who are pregnant, they are 4 times more likely to be hospitalized.
Wow.
And 8 times more likely to get flu-related complications, including death. Not to mention when they get the vaccine, they pass on those antibodies to the babies who can't get a vaccine until 6 months of age, so they protect the baby too. And then there are high-risk conditions like diabetes that has been shown that is 3 times more likely to have flu-related complications ending up in the hospital. Heart disease, actually, people don't think about that. But if you don't have any heart, like you're normal and you get the flu, you are at double the risk of getting a heart attack during the time right after your flu illness.
Wow.
If you have heart disease, you're 6 times the risk of getting a heart attack. So the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association has actually come out and said, in order to prevent heart attacks, you should have a flu vaccine. It's been shown, isn't it great? It's like taking a pill. You gotta get your flu vaccine. And almost 30% reduction in preventing heart attacks for those who have heart disease. So, I mean, the numbers are there. You can see that. People who have asthma or COPD, can you imagine? We know that that's a lung disease. Can you imagine getting both COVID and flu on top of that? Like that, it just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So those are really high-risk people. And you know what we never think about is obesity. Obesity actually increases your risk for COVID-19, but also for flu. And especially people who have a body mass index greater than 40. Smokers also, those who stop smoking, and those with weakened immune system. And anybody who's around any of these people. So you see, at the end of the day, it's everybody. And also healthcare workers.
Oh yeah. I think it's funny. You're like, basically everyone should have a flu shot. I know my husband got the flu last December and I was like, I can't believe you got it. You got your flu shot. And he's like, no, I didn't. And I was like, well, then I don't feel everybody else in the house got one. And guess who was the first one this year to get their flu shot?
Good, he learned. He learned. Now, did the rest of the house get sick?
No, nobody else did. I know.
He's a great example.
The bedroom for a week, whatever.
You proved it to him. Look at that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for that. And now I do want to bring up Dr. Labello. Dr. Labello, if you can talk to us quickly about statistics. I know there's a lot of focus with COVID around the African American community, but can you talk to us about that in receiving flu vaccinations and why there's such a disparity gap between the two different races?
Sure. We've known for decades now that there are racial disparities in many diseases in the U.S. and this COVID-19 pandemic is sort of exposing them, is accelerating them, and with flu, we've known that African American rates of vaccination have always been lower than other racial groups. For starters, about half of the population in the U.S. gets a flu vaccine, so a lot of room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
But that rate is about 8 points lower for African Americans.
Huh.
So even more vulnerable populations
Yeah.
that are not going to be protected. And there's many reasons for that. African Americans may have lower access to healthcare, but they may also have a different perception of medical research and vaccines, and that's sort of a legacy of errors and badly run experiments like Tuskegee earlier in the 1930s and 40s and 50s
Mhm.
that really overrun the African American community. So there's a number of reasons for the lower vaccine rates in African Americans and also to some extent in Hispanics. Um, but the point that we really want to stress is that a lot of people are vulnerable to the flu, and as Dr. Pimentel said, you're not just protecting yourself when you get the flu vaccine.
Mhm.
You are contributing to population immunity and
Mhm.
protecting those around you, especially those that cannot get the flu vaccine because they're less than 6 months,
Mhm.
so really tiny babies, or those that perhaps are going through chemo because they have
Mhm.
cancer and their
Yeah.
immune system is unable to deal with the flu vaccine or any other immunosuppression reason.
Mhm.
And it's our collective responsibility to increase vaccination rates to lower that risk. For Douglas County, we have data showing that the actual vaccination rate of Douglas County is 43%. For Georgia is 44%, so about average for
Mhm.
Georgia. But for the United States is a little bit higher. It's about 46, 47%. So, we're not, to begin with, we're not
Mhm.
leaders in terms of vaccination. And especially this year with
Yeah.
both viruses circulating with this pandemic, you really don't want to take any risks and at least eliminate the potential for severe flu
Yeah.
with the vaccination. That's an important thing that, again, Dr. Pimentel mentioned that, no vaccine is perfect. No vaccine is going
Mhm.
to have 100% effectiveness in reducing the risk of infection. You may still get infected, but for sure, your outcomes, your
Yeah.
likelihood of hospitalization and getting to the ICU and dying is going to be
Yeah.
much, much, much lower if you are vaccinated.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you brought up a great point too. Like we've been preaching for months about wear your mask and it's to protect others, right? To help other people. And if you, I never had thought about it, but the flu vaccine is kind of the same way. Like you're helping others, so, I mean, that's a great point and something, I don't know, it's just a different perspective than I've thought about that before. So
Absolutely, and some people may adhere to the vaccination
yeah.
because of that point, because they know they are not just doing it for themselves. They may think they're low
Mhm.
risk, or they never get the flu. Uh, but if you're use the argument that you're also protecting your loved ones, that
Mhm.
can help us also get increase
Yeah.
our vaccination rates.
It's all about the messaging, right? Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to ask Dr. Griffith a question now. Dr. Griffith, can you help us understand the apprehension regarding flu vaccines in relation to African Americans a little bit, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And Dr. Lobello just referenced some of the concerns in the African American community, like the legacy of Tuskegee. Um, it resonates in the minds of many African Americans, and it's just not Tuskegee. There's been
Mhm.
a legacy of multiple experiences. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I trained at University of Cincinnati, and University of Cincinnati was guilty as well of something very similar to Tuskegee in the late 60s and early 70s. That there were some so-called charity patients, 80 charity patients. The majority of them were African Americans, and they had cancer, and they were deemed untreatable. And they were given high doses of radiation, 10 times the dose of normal human radiation. This study was done in conjunction with the National Institute of Health, U.S. Department of Energy, and it was done on these patients, these so-called subjects, without their consent.
Oh, wow.
For the so-called sake of science. So many of these things almost sound like Nazi Germany. So
Yeah.
as a result of this, there's this fear of being experimented on. And so over the past 30 years or so, there's been lots of ethics and bioethics and consent, so that you have to consent, you have to be open and transparent in order to prevent this. And it is because of Tuskegee and these countless number of other experiments why it's hard to get African Americans to participate in clinical trials, like including the COVID trials. They
Mhm.
can't find enough Black subjects to participate in the COVID trials.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, but truthfully, like, honestly makes sense if if somebody had said that to me, and I was in that situation, it would definitely, alter your mindset. But that's why we do things like this, to help kind of disband the myths of, like, that's not how this is going to go.
Yes.
And I think that's very important. And that's a lot of it. We talked on one of our other episodes about generationalism, and it's a great learning opportunity for anybody right now to know and understand, even whether it's the flu vaccine or COVID or anything in real life, like knowing and sharing information that's accurate and precise going forward, and being open about that is the best thing, is one of the best things that we can do, minus getting your flu shot. Like, it's one of the best things that people can do now, is because there's all of those predispositions that people have about whatever, and knowing that there's an opportunity to share accurate information is so important. Perfect. Okay, let's talk to Dr. Lobello again, and I would like to kind of close out our conversation on this little piece. Can you talk to us about why African Americans should, and I feel like Dr. Griffith did a great segue into this, but why should African Americans consider getting their flu shot?
Yeah, obviously we talked about the increased risk factors for severe flu that are similar to severe COVID. And unfortunately, the rates of diabetes and heart disease and chronic kidney disease and obesity and many of these chronic conditions are also higher among African Americans. So you have a combination of lower vaccine rates, but also higher risk factors, and that makes the situation even more dangerous when you think about population health. And in addition to that, we talked about the apprehension, for a number of reasons, to receive vaccinations in the African American community. So that word spreads, and unfortunately, misinformation also spreads. We've seen that very clearly during this pandemic, where rumors start, social media, where information that's not clear or that is not true, true about COVID and flu may affect people's decision making about whether to get the vaccine. This is going to be even more important once that need to have a high degree of from all persons in the country, all racial and ethnic and demographic groups of people, to really be able to achieve that population immunity. It doesn't really make sense, or it doesn't really help if only 10% of the population receives the COVID vaccine. So flu vaccine is an opportunity for us to re-engage with the community, explain these things, explain sort of these risk factors, and set the stage for hopefully in a few months, once we have an FDA-approved vaccine, we can sort of translate those approaches to also increase vaccination for COVID. So if you have questions about any health aspect, whether it is flu or whether it is COVID or COVID vaccination or flu vaccination, my recommendation is always to go to the CDC website.
Yeah.
because it's the most authoritative source of medical facts. That's what we as doctors use. That's what we like our patients to go to sort of avoid the middleman, avoid
Yeah.
the misinformation, and go to the source. It's both in Spanish and English. Is updated every day, and that's the best way for us to help combat that misinformation.
Oh, and I think that that's great advice. And you sit, and I mean, the news is the news, and Facebook is Facebook. But if you want the cold hard facts, then the data and the information is out there. And so, versus talking to your neighbors or your friends, which that might be helpful, and they can tell you about their awful experience or great or whatever. But going to trusted resources that have existed for years and years absolutely makes sense. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's bring up Dr. Pimentel again. And I would like, if you would talk to us a little bit, and I feel like it's almost like we practice this, but can you talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions about flu vaccines, other than that they hurt really bad? Because that's absolutely not true.
Absolutely. My favorite one, the one that's most common for anybody, is the flu shot makes you sick. So
Yeah.
everybody thinks the flu shot makes you sick. It doesn't. It actually cannot make you sick because it's like live virus, and the nasal spray has a weakened virus. So it really cannot make you ill. But I'll tell you what some people may experience. So it takes 2 weeks for the vaccine to work. And if they have had any other illnesses, they're going to blame it on the flu vaccine in that time period. If they get the flu, they're exposed in that time period, it's not going to protect them. So that's why it's so important to get the flu vaccine now before we get into everybody widespread flu. The other thing is that there are a lot of other viruses going around. So it could be a different virus. It's not even flu. They're like, oh, I got it 3 weeks ago, and now I have a cold, and that flu vaccine. And another thing is that, there are some side effects with the flu vaccine. And you may get a little bit achy, a little bit headache, a little temperature, even a little sniffles, right? A little tired. That happens within a couple of hours from the vaccine, and it'll last 1 day. Definitely worth it for avoiding getting the flu illness. And I don't know if you've ever had it, but I had it when I was 23. That was the only time I need to have it. Because I've had a vaccine since. I never want to see that ever again. It was awful. So definitely does not give you the flu. It's not possible. The other thing is that, I'm so healthy. I don't need to ever get a flu shot. I've never had the flu. Well, kind of like thinking about a seatbelt. Do you wait to get into a car accident before you put on the seatbelt? Right? This is all preventive, right? We don't want to get ill because the flu can be unpredictable. We don't know. You can be healthy and still have some bad outcomes. The people who have chronic conditions or the different age groups that I told you about, they do have serious outcomes, and they're going to be more of them, but that doesn't mean that somebody who's healthy cannot die from the flu or cannot get really sick and then have sequelae or problems after that. It's really important for people to understand how serious the disease is, and one little vaccine can help protect them. I think it's worth it. Not much. It does hurt a little bit, you're right. It hurts a little bit for some people. And the other one is the flu shot isn't safe. Like, there have been millions of flu vaccines given. The flu shot has been proven to be safe over and over again. It's kind of like what Dr. Labella was talking about, that misinformation, and also that memory of when back in the 70s there were some side effects. And I think nobody has forgotten that. They don't even remember what it was. They just remember some side effects. And they're just like, continue to feel that. So definitely the flu shot is safe. It's been given for like over 50 years. I've been taking it for 25. Can't believe that. Over 25 years every year. My kids get it. So my colleagues get it. So it's definitely a vaccine that is safe. And then the other one they talk about is like, it doesn't work. Well, look at it this way. So people may get the flu shot. They may still get ill. But if they do get ill, the research has shown this, and I have personally felt this, the illness is much milder. And the way you need to look at it is like, it will reduce the risk of bad outcomes. So 71% reduction of hospitalization in people 65 and over. Like that's worth getting a flu vaccine for, I think. Decreasing death in children who are healthy by 65%. And decreasing having a heart attack for people who are already having existing heart disease by 30%, almost 30%. It's definitely worth getting the flu vaccine. So that's how you have to think about it. It's not that you're never going to get sick because it's only protecting you against flu virus. There are other viruses out there, but that you're going to reduce the bad outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I always tell my kids when we go, I'm like, it's 1 second of hurt that could you like 10 days of misery. And they're all like, I mean, the 7-year-old's not too jazzed about it still, but the other at it. Like, I'm like, you can hate it for about 30 seconds and I'll give you ice cream afterward, or you can feel like crap for a while. So you take it's your call.
Yeah, actually, Sarah, that's a really good point because I have my kids are now 18 and 22. My son, in particular, he's a 22-year-old who you had to hold him down. He's a big boy to get any vaccine. But I am so proud of them. Now they go by themselves to get the vaccine. Yes. My daughter's in college and they were giving it in college. I didn't have to say anything. She got her vaccine for free. So.
That was my oldest two. They came home and they're like, "Oh, we went to Publix and got our flu shot and got a $10 gift card." And I didn't even ask them about going yet. They just did it on their own account. And I was like, "Well, I haven't even got my flu shot yet. Like y'all beat me there." So
that is excellent.
And that's the kind of mindset that you want to set because they just know it's just part of the routine and they know it hurts for a second, but then it's okay. So that's great. Perfect. All right, let's talk to Dr. Griffith again real quick. What practices do we employ to change like a no to a yes for those that remain kind of on the fence about getting their flu shot vaccination?
Okay. So it's like this. You asked that question a little bit earlier, which do you worry more about? So it's sort of like this. Would you rather be killed by a bullet or a knife?
Right.
When you're dead, you're dead.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. When you're done, you're done. When you're sick, you're sick. And so one of the things that has happened over the course of the last 100 years is our life expectancy has gone up. So if you look at 1900, average life expectancy of an American was 45. Leading causes of death then were influenza, pneumonia, tuberculosis, diarrhea. Now we die from heart attack, stroke, cancer. Average life expectancy is 80.
Wow.
The difference in that time is immunizations. Our MMR, our polio vaccines, all those things. So those were things that took people out a long time ago. And it's the advancement of medicine and science that is allowing us to live longer. So those are things we should think about. And so as we move forward into this season where these two respiratory viruses potentially can take us down, one we have a treatment for, the other we don't. So it's sort of like, there are these two guys who are on this boat and they're in the middle of a storm and one's got a life jacket on, the other one doesn't. They get both thrown overboard. So it's very possible that they both die and they drown.
Yeah.
The one who's got that life jacket on's got the better chance. That's the flu vaccine. So wear your life jacket. Get your flu vaccine.
Well, and I mean, think 3 years from now, we'll be having the same conversations about the COVID vaccine, hopefully in 3 years. But it's one of those, if you think back 20 years, we didn't preach getting your flu vaccination as much as we do now because it wasn't important and people hadn't seen kind of that it actually can help. Or polio. I mean, you brought up great examples. So it's just one of those, as we progress in medical technology, in medical sciences, the more we know, the better we get. And if it involves getting a vaccination once a year and you're staying healthy, or you have better chances of staying healthy, then I don't see why you wouldn't want to do it.
And as my colleagues have referenced, again, today we're at greater risk for having these complications. One, we have an aging population. We have an obese population. So 40% of Americans are either obese or overweight.
That's crazy.
So you've got heavier people, you've got older people. Again, it's setting up for a perfect storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then to Dr. Lobello's point, only 40% in Georgia or a little higher are actually getting their flu vaccination. So, I mean, what are the odds that those numbers stack up, to where, like those, anyway, that's just random thoughts. Cool. Thank you. All right, Dr. Lobello, let's talk about when the best time is to get your flu shot and if the effects like wear off over time. Is that true? I'm just going through kind of some of the myths of things that people perceive. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a very relevant question. So the best time is, as early as possible. You don't want to wait until you hear in the news that, flu activity is really high and, go and get your flu shot, because remember, it takes, like Dr. Pimentel said, a couple of weeks for your immune system to develop immunity. So the earlier the better. September is, sort of like the ideal month. October is okay. After October, you're taking a lot of risks, a lot of, you're playing with the chances, and it's sort of like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
So early, and a lot of places, as you mentioned, they're making it easy. It's everywhere. In grocery stores. We at Kaiser have drive-thrus to make it, faster, easier. Because we recognize that, one of the reasons people may not do it is because, they don't want to be in line. They don't want to, have to make an appointment to the doctor. So, it's never been easier to get the flu shot.
Yeah.
Now, it does wear off. The immunity for flu typically lasts 9 months. One of the reasons is because, by nature, flu viruses mutate every year. And in fact, the viruses that are, in each year's vaccination, are also changing. There's different strains of the virus that we get protected every year based on, for example, the strains of virus that circulated in the Southern Hemisphere, because they have their flu season before us. So we have the luxury to sort of like peek into the future and see, all right, is it going to be an H1N1? Is it going to be an H2N3? Which strains are, probably going to be the ones that circulate the most, and then get protected against those. So, it's just a fact of life. Flu mutates, and we need to get the flu shot every year. That's the reason why. And you'll probably have a similar situation with coronavirus. There's different strains of coronaviruses. They also mutate, not as fast as flu, but they also mutate. And a lot of virologists are predicting that this virus that we are now in the middle of a pandemic may become endemic, meaning it'll come back every year, probably with less force, because, over time we're going to have more population immunity. But we may have to adapt to this idea of having, your yearly flu shot and your yearly COVID shot, or your yearly coronavirus shot. So, that's the reason why we have to do a yearly vaccination against flu.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, and I was curious to see how long it lasted, but that's good to know. I mean, it's good to know, because the earlier you get, it makes all the sense in the world. If you wait till November, you're losing out on those months of when you really would need it. So very good. All right, let's talk to Dr. Griffith again. Let's talk about a little bit of the area. One of the areas that are the least spoken when it comes to pandemic is like the mental and emotional toll that it can have on the community. So can you talk to us a little bit about the psychological impact of COVID-19 and the flu twindemic that they're both kind of having on the community?
For sure. Stress.
Yeah.
Who isn't feeling stress right now? You don't need to be a psychiatrist in order to identify that we are all stressed out. So, Sarah, so you called me out right in the beginning. You talked about my jersey. So if you watch a Falcons game, you will lose your mind.
Yes.
So I made the decision, if I'm going to be stressed, I might as well cheer for the bad team I grew up with. So stress, stress, stress. So that turns to one thing, is this. You mentioned the thing about, the twindemic. And if it was just a twindemic, it might be easy. So think about this. You got flu. You got COVID. You got social injustice. So while you're stuck at home, you turn on the TV, and then you witness George Floyd being killed. You see these videos of Ahmaud Arbery. You see Rashard Brooks right up the street, and it makes you start losing your mind of anger, frustration. Then you put on top of that economic hardship in your own, and things that are happening in your own personal life. You missed your high school graduation. You're not able to be at your grandmother's funeral. And so those normal things that we expect in life, where you can congregate and be social, you're not able to do. And so we have to find some ways to help ourselves. And the thing about the emotional turmoil related to COVID, this is all new. No one heard of COVID a few months ago. So this is where we have to all be in this together. So the first thing that we do is we love our neighbor. We love our mother. We love our brother, our sister. So wear your mask. Protect yourself. Give your mind a break. Turn the TV off. So whether you're a Joe Biden fan or you're a Trump fan, and you watch the news, you will just lose your mind. So give yourself a break from the news, because anything big that happens, you're gonna know. Just like when Kobe died, even if you didn't know who Kobe was, you knew.
Everybody
so
knew.
with how our technology is, anything big happens, you're gonna know. So take a break from it. And you think about this virus. You guys are down south there, and it's like The Walking Dead. So one moment you hug somebody, the next moment you got a cough, then a week later you're in the hospital, and the week later you may be dead. So get your mind right. Spend time in prayer, in meditation, reaching out to those that you love by safe means. Resist the fatigue, because people are getting burned out on this lockdown. You've got to resist. So it's the equivalent of being in this hurricane. You're in the eye of the storm, and it's calm, but the winds on the backside many times can be more dangerous than the ones up front. Give yourselves a time to reset. Get in better shape. Stop eating so much junk food. And start exercising, walking, riding a bike, appreciating God's gifts. Step outside and turn your phone off, be still, and listen to the beautiful sounds of nature. Birds. Bird watching now is at an all-time high. Smell, the autumn air. And so just to do a reset, and that's going to help you to get through this. Professionally, seek professional help. So if you work for a company such as Kaiser, or a county government agency, we have EAPs. You can call the EAP, and you can get a number of sessions free. If you have commercial health insurance, you call the back of that card. You can get set up to see a mental health professional. And if you don't have insurance, fortunately, where you guys live, they have a very good public mental health system through the pathway system, that you can see a psychiatrist or a therapist for very little. So get some help for yourself during these challenging times.
Well, and I think you brought up like a great variety of things. And, it's one of those during the true shelter in place, which, we basically came somewhat out of that in May, June here in Georgia, it was one of those, I just remember seeing more people walking around my neighborhood than I've ever seen before. I connected through Zoom with one of my best friends that lives in Ecuador, and we talk weekly, when we were used to talking via text every, 6 months or something. So it's been, as much as it's been a stressor, I think that there are some silver linings that have come out of this. I never hiked before. I'm just using myself as an example. I never hiked before. And now it's a thing, me and my 7-year-old, like we love to go explore. And, the anti-nature person has turned into somewhat of a nature person. Yeah. So, there are good things that can come out of it. And you're absolutely right. I just remember, when all of this was, truly, truly madness, I would say. And they were talking about all the suicide rates, increasing, alcohol and drug use, all of that. So seeking professional help is always helpful. And I always try and stress, no pun intended, that nobody's beyond asking for help. Like you should never feel like you can't ask for help. So I think that's excellent advice.
And we are all links in a chain. Mm-hmm. And there's not one of us who hasn't needed the help of someone else. So don't be afraid to ask for that help.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was I just got all the feels of remembering all the things that I actually appreciated about being home for, 2 months with my family. So let's bring up Dr. Pimentel again. We can talk about other lifestyle changes that we can employ to stay well during the pandemic or during flu season. I'm sorry. Well, it's all relative.
It's all the same. So Dr. Griffith mentioned a couple already. So eating healthy, making sure you get your fruits and veggies, low salt foods, avoid the processed foods, eat as much as you can whole foods. And if you are eating well, that will give you enough nutrients that you need and antioxidants. You don't need to take extra vitamins. If you exercise 30 minutes a day, okay, some people have not exercised at all, so maybe only 10 minutes a day for them. So we definitely don't want you to start something if you haven't done anything at all. You want to go slowly and build up on it. And you can do 10 minutes twice a day. Whatever it is you want to move every day that is going to actually improve your immunity. Don't underestimate the importance of sleep. You need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. Otherwise, your immunity goes down. So don't forget that. I have to remind myself that all the time. Stop smoking. That is actually reducing your immunity. And no excessive alcohol. So believe it or not, it's just 1 5-ounce glass of wine for women and 2 for men. And you can't actually accumulate them. So you can't say in the weekend, I didn't have any for 5 days and have 10. Doesn't work that way. And, the other thing is to take care of your chronic conditions. If you have diabetes or high blood pressure, this is not the time to be experimenting or stopping your meds. This is a time to be on top of your numbers. Check your sugars, check your blood pressures. Make sure you're taking medications. If you have any problems with your medications or have any concerns, talk to your doctor. Don't just stop them. Keep about 2 weeks or 4 weeks of medication on hand. We don't know when we're going to have everything closed again and you can't leave. And also make sure that you are controlling those numbers and talking to your doctor, getting a visit if you need it, whether you're sick or for your chronic condition. Do not avoid us. We are available virtually. KP has lots of virtual sessions in order to make people not have to come in, and they can feel safe and they can talk to us first before coming in.
Very cool. I saw a crazy, and I forget what it was, but like a crazy statistic on the number of teledoc visits that, it's like they've increased like 2,000% or something crazy, because once people figured out how easy it was, they're like, oh, why do I want to go sit in a doctor's,
They've gotten used to it. We're not going to go back to the way we were.
Yeah. Well, even I know one of our chamber members, their doctor's office, and even not through teledoc, like you could do like a virtual doctor's appointment, like with your actual GP for, during shelter in place, so that they were able to still stay open and help their patients. So I appreciate a lot of the creativity in the ways that people have kind of adapted. So those are all very great points. And just made my son's well check appointment a couple of months later. But I was asking them, I was like, are you guys just slammed with people doing well visits right now? Because everybody has kind of gotten over being scared. And she said there's still so many people that aren't staying up with that annual well visit. So I encourage do that too. It's so important, especially for little ones. Or I mean, for everybody, but I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. So I absolutely love that. So I think you have a video you would like us to share.
Yeah, do we have time?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Okay.
Every year, I care for patients in the ICU who are incredibly sick, patients who have tubes down their throats, machines breathing for them, and they're desperately clinging to life, all because of an infection that's preventable, and that infection is the flu.
Early part of this year,
I had decided not to receive the flu vaccine and ended up getting sick from the flu. I ended up in the hospital. Organs were failing, come to find out. And if it wasn't for the great doctors here at Kaiser Permanente, I wouldn't be here today.
I want to emphasize that the flu vaccine is the single most important thing that you can do to protect yourself during the flu season. But it's not just you we're trying to protect. We'd like to protect your children, your family, your grandparents, and all the loved ones that are in your life. So please get the flu vaccine.
Don't end up like me. Remember, get the flu shot, so I know I will.
Perfect. See, and I think that's very good information. And I would say not just because doctors are telling you this stuff, right? I mean, I think if you think beyond just factual medical information about why it's beneficial to get your flu shot, and just think about, just think about your kids and your family. Nobody wants to be sick. So this is a very simple way. So thank you for that. All right, we got time for one last little question. I want to talk to Dr. Griffith one more time. And I just want to talk a little bit. I'm going to pop up one more slide, and I want you to talk a little bit about like the most important things that we should take away from all of this today, as far as being able to stay safe. There's kind of like a handful of things. I just read this. I hadn't looked at it before, and I love number 5. But if you just want to talk through a little bit about the 5 things that you can do right now, go for it.
Well, you see it listed there, but I just want to make it very simple. Love your neighbor. Love your community. Love your mother, your father, all those people around. And so how you do that is, number 1, wear a mask. The mask helps you to protect those others from pushing that stuff out of your lungs and your nose and out of your mouth out into the air so other people can get it. Keep your distance. We know you want to hug your granny and your friends, but again, if you hug them, you have that virus, you can put them under the ground. So give yourself some distance, and then pretend you're a surgeon. Wash your hands and make sure you wash them and use your sanitizer for a long enough period of time. So, many times people underestimate how long they wash their hands. So one of the things you want to do is, put a song in your head, sing the birthday song.
We do the alphabet.
Do the alphabet. And as much as we want to be around our loved ones during the holiday, if you're doing these gatherings of your family, you may harm them. So socially distant. Do the Zoom Thanksgiving. Do the Zoom Christmas. And then if we all do these things the right way, the next time it comes around, we'll be able to do it. And, and what I also did for you, Sarah, as you look, I changed my orientation of the screen. You can see Todd Gurley's jersey back there. And we see our Atlanta United on the other side.
I love it.
And finally, what we have to do as good citizens is get out and vote. And when you're voting, do these same things as well. Mask, socially distant, wash your hands, and we'll get through this together.
Absolutely. I went and voted on Saturday, and they gave me this little thing, like a little, I don't know, like a stylus to tap the voting screen. I thought that was so smart. So, cool. Well, if you guys, we appreciate all of you guys being on today. I don't know where Dr. Griffith went. He was like, go vote, drop the mic, I'm out. I appreciate you guys all being on today and helping us all better understand. Oh, there you are. Did you hear that? He just dropped the mic. He's like, go vote, I'm done. But I appreciate you guys all taking the time to be here. I know I learned some things about everything about the flu vaccination, why it's important, and I don't think it ever hurts to hear it again, right? So, do you guys have any final comments before we wrap it up tonight, other than go vote and go Falcons?
Sarah, thank you so much for having us. This has been so much fun. You've been a great hostess, and I hope that we can come back when it comes time for COVID vaccine and talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. Anybody else? Oh, I think you're muted. I do that all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Please remember to use a mask every time you leave the house. You don't know who you're going to encounter, who's going to talk to you. And if 95% of the country uses this, we're going to have 100,000 less deaths. It's not a child's game. It's not political. It's not fake news. It's just a simple intervention, and it's going to also reduce flu rate. So just do your part, please.
Absolutely. Love it. Dr. Griffith, rise up. I'm just kidding. Your sound went away. Oh, man.
Read his lips.
I will decipher it in the chat. Thank you guys so much. Again, we appreciate Kaiser supporting and sponsoring this tonight. If people want more information, we'll make sure and put it in the chats. And again, appreciate just on behalf of anybody that is listening, I just appreciate all that you guys do as medical professionals for our community. And that's during all of the craziness of COVID, before and in the future. We really, truly appreciate all that you guys do.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
No problem.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining. Everybody else, tune back in. I think we're back November 4th, I think, and we'll have a new speaker. But thank you guys all for joining us tonight. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.